start with this. Well, the story seems to be that on April 22nd in New York City, Jelena Mrdjenovich, the reigning WBA featherweight champion, will make a new defense of her WBA featherweight title against Erika Cruz Hernandez, who sports a professional record of 12 wins and 1 loss.
She suffered that loss 5 years ago.
At the hands of Alondra Flores. She's won 11 fights since then, so she is on a hot streak with a respectable record. And she's a southpaw.
Hailing from Mexico.
Those subscribed to Amanda Serrano's YouTube channel might have been privy to this news already, as both Amanda Serrano and her brother-in-law, Jordan Maldonado, they got everybody hip to this news a few days ago. Perhaps a little over a week?
You know, I don't want to talk down to her, but, you know, she broke the monotony. She broke the ice by trying to discredit us and how we, you know, picked up the WBC title. So what we want to do is reciprocate and give it back. You know what I'm saying? So she hasn't knocked anybody out in a very, very long time. And, you know, I mean, for her sake, she better pull it off against Erika Cruz, because from what I've been hearing, the girl's tough enough to, you know, to pull a rabbit out of her hat and catch a victory.
But if Erika Cruz does win, at least we know we have an opponent for the WBA.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen to me. Mexicans don't play. You know what I'm saying? The worst one is nothing to play with. You know what I'm saying? So we welcome that. I mean, I'm not wishing any bad, you know, towards Jelena, but, you know, I mean, for us, it would be, I believe it would be best if Erika will win, because then we know for sure we don't have to chase nobody around, and she's going to want to unify. You know what I'm saying? We're coming with 2 titles. You know what I'm saying?
That video snippet by way of Team Serrano was posted to their YouTube channel on February 24th, and in so many words, they let everybody know who it was Jelena was going to be fighting and what might happen.
She loses.
If things go sideways for Jelena, because they could.
See what happened to Josh Warrington.
That was supposed to be a tick-over fight for Josh, and we see how it all worked out. Could a similar fate await Jelena Mrdjenovich? I think so.
Boxing is the theater of the unexpected.
And if Team Serrano has so decided to come out swinging the way that they have towards Jelena Mrdjenovich, it's due to Jelena's own comments. Jelena, in so many words, was ribbing Amanda about winning yet another vacant title. But what Jelena's not saying is that the only reason she picked up a vacant title is because you didn't want to defend it. You didn't want to unify it. You didn't want to fight her to keep it. You handed it over.
Got a lofty WBC designation.
Lofty WBC designations and titles aside, Jelena Mrdjenovich had a choice, and she chose to forfeit the title, to surrender it to Amanda Serrano. You all know what the story is. That Jelena Mrdjenovich is going through a hard time right now, and I don't doubt that she is, because her longtime trainer's health is failing. Essentially why she enlisted the aid of Jonathan Banks not that long ago. And that she's too emotionally compromised, I guess, to fight someone like Amanda Serrano. But that story, that cover story, it really is a tough sell when she seems perfectly okay to fight Erika Cruz. She's not too emotionally compromised to fight with Erika, but when it comes to Amanda, it's a story. This is all very hard to defend, and there really is only one way to reconcile it. What's the difference between Erika Cruz and Amanda Serrano? Amanda's a more decorated fighter. Put simply, it's a more dangerous fight for Jelena. That's why you're okay to fight with Erika, but you're not okay to fight with Amanda. That's what's going on. I'm just calling a spade a spade. I'm just giving it to you straight because it's the only way I know how to give it to you.
If you're asking me why the fight's not happening.
If you're asking me why Jelena's okay to fight Erika, but she's not okay to fight Amanda,
what am I supposed to say?
what's it supposed to sound like? What's my answer? What's it supposed to be? You want me to give you some other kind of reason?
I can't.
I can't make excuses for it. I can't defend it.
I don't care which one of these 2 girls you're a fan of.
I don't care what you're mad about from the past, and I don't care how you feel about it in the present, because if we have to reconcile why the fight with Jelena and Amanda didn't happen, there's really only one reason.
Jelena didn't want it.
And so, at the end of this month, on the 25th, we're going to be seeing Amanda Serrano defend her 2 titles against Daniela Bermudez, the reigning IBF champion at 122. She's going to be taking on Amanda at 126. Given how well Maria Cecilia Roman performed against Melissa Odessa, Maria, who moved up in weight for that fight, that gives me some hope that Daniela can make a fight out of this. That even though she's the fighter that's moving up in weight, the way that Maria was moving up in weight for the Melissa Odessa fight, that she can still make a fight out of this, and we shouldn't write off her chances altogether. That's going down later on this month, on March the 25th. And the following month, in April, we're going to be seeing Jelena Mrdjenovich return to action against Erika Cruz. Keep your eyes peeled for that. In other news, per tweet from Michael Benson, Billy Joe Saunders has stated that Canelo does not have a rematch clause for their fight on May 8th. Essentially, it's a winner-takes-all kind of situation, though I will say, if by some chance Billy Joe Saunders were to upset the apple cart for Canelo Alvarez and what his future plans are, I wouldn't rule out a rematch, given what the rematch would be worth.
Yeah.
This ain't like Lopez versus Loma, to where Lopez secures the win, makes off like a bandit, doesn't want to give Loma the time of day thereafter. This ain't a situation like that. This is a situation where I think Billy Joe Saunders would entertain a second fight, a second outing against Canelo Alvarez if he were to beat him. Not saying that he will or won't, but if he did, I think he'd entertain a rematch situation with Canelo because of the financial value it would represent to him. What other fight with what other fighter would pay Billy the kind of money that he'd get paid for fighting Canelo Alvarez 2 times?
Caleb Plant.
David Benavidez, Jim Watsolo, you tell me what fight anywhere at around that weight, those weights, would represent the same financial value to Billy Joe Saunders that a second Canelo Alvarez fight would represent to him. That is the biggest money fight that any super middleweight, contender, champion, or otherwise, that's the biggest fight that any fighter in that weight class could hope to have. That being said, even if there's not a rematch clause incorporated into the contract language of the contracts, that doesn't mean you should rule one out. If things go sideways for Canelo, I think there actually would be a second fight, though I'm not convinced that things are going to go sideways for Canelo. I don't think that Billy Joe Saunders is going to go out there and fight a negative fight that was quite as negative as what we saw from Callum Smith. Billy Joe Saunders, like Canelo Alvarez, has some counterpunching ability. I wouldn't say it's on the level of Canelo Alvarez's counterpunching ability, but all the same. Billy is a skilled counterpuncher. He's the bigger man, and he's a southpaw.
He's got a better resume than all those guys at super middleweight.
It's just that what makes Billy's resume better than these other guys that are out there, these are the potential opponent options for Canelo Alvarez. What makes his resume better than theirs are the things that he did as a middleweight, not the things that he's done as a super middleweight. As a super middleweight, things have been rather abysmal for Billy Joe Saunders. The most familiar name that he's fought is a very past-it, very over-the-hill Martin Murray in a fight that should have happened a long time ago, but didn't.
Not till many years later.
Eddie Hearn seems to think that Billy Joe Saunders, out of all the guys at 168 pounds, he seems to think that Billy stands the best chance, relatively speaking of course, that Billy stands the best chance of upsetting the apple cart for Canelo Alvarez. I'd have to say that it's between Billy and David Benavidez, though the argument for David Benavidez upsetting the apple cart for Canelo Alvarez is a lot more intangible.
It is.
David's resume isn't exactly all that robust.
And even though that doesn't always tell the story.
I mean, look at Teofimo. Teofimo wasn't a 3-division champion like Vasyl Lomachenko. He hadn't beaten as many world champions as Vasyl Lomachenko, but he beat Vasyl Lomachenko nonetheless. Thus, the resume in and of itself doesn't always tell the story, though it does give you an accurate gauge, an accurate barometer for what level the fighter has been competing in up until a certain point. When it comes to David, you know, he's got a pretty thin resume.
That's why his argument's more ethereal.
And more intangible. It's more eye test stuff than it is anything else. His best win is Anthony Durrell, and that was a solid scalp for David. Anthony was the reigning WBC champion at the time.
But that's really it.
That's it. That and 2 fights with Ronald Gavril.
David doesn't have a title anymore.
Thus, he's not a priority. He doesn't rank very high on Canelo Alvarez's to-do list. Billy Joe Saunders does, because Billy Joe Saunders is a reigning, unbeaten 2-division champion in possession of a world title. So I won't lose sleep over Canelo fighting Billy instead of David.
Look for that in May.
And finally, per a tweet from Michael Benson, Leo Santa Cruz has said he wants to face Oscar Valdez in an all-Mexican super featherweight title showdown. Valdez just conquered Miguel Berchelt for the WBC title, and LSC hopes to challenge him despite his defeat to Gervonta Davis. You know, I talked about this fight in passing, that there was a time and a place for it. There was a time when Oscar Valdez versus Leo Santa Cruz made a lot of sense, but that time has long since passed, and that is a sentiment that Steve Kim shared via Twitter. He says, now Santa Cruz wants to fight Oscar Valdez. Hard pass. It was a time and a place for that fight. Its sell-by date has expired. When matchups take place is important, and he's quite right. When these two guys held world titles at 126, that's when they should have made that fight. When Oscar held the WBO and when Leo held the WBA. Now, currently, Leo still holds the WBA for whatever reason.
He does.
But Oscar has left the featherweight division. He's currently in the super featherweight division.
Just became WBC champion there.
And I don't think that he's about to move back down, even for a Leo Santa Cruz fight, as there would only be one world title on the line, Leo's title. I mean, that's one conflict, that's one hindrance the fight faces, but another hindrance that it faces are the politics of boxing, the sides of the street that these fighters are on. Why wasn't Leo more concerned with fighting Oscar Valdez when he actually was in the same division as Oscar Valdez? Why now?
Why?
Leo's still a PBC fighter. Oscar's still a top-ranked fighter.
That hasn't changed.
What is it? Is it that Oscar's making waves right now and you want to ride those waves, coattail his success, attach your name to his for a fight that likely won't happen?
Why is he all of a sudden asking for Oscar?
He hasn't even rebounded off the loss to Gervonta Davis yet, the knockout loss, the violent knockout that he suffered to Gervonta Davis at 130 pounds. What's Leo really talking about here? Is Leo talking about moving up in weight to challenge Oscar for his WBC title, or is he expecting Oscar to come down to him?
No, he wants it at super featherweight.
How did the situation change to where now, all of a sudden, Leo Santa Cruz is interested in a fight that he should have been interested in a long time ago? What's different? Well, I've been telling you guys over and over that I think the people over there at the PBC are facing a scarcity of fight dates as a result of a wavering commitment from the people over there at Fox. I don't think that the people over there at Fox are interested in overpaying for these foregone conclusion fights the PBC wants to put on. And it's for this reason that certain of their fighters haven't come back yet, even though they've been out of action for well over a year. Fighters like Keith Thurman, fighters like Andy Ruiz, whose next bout is set to take place on pay-per-view as opposed to regular Fox, where a fight like that belongs.
That's right.
Told you guys before. They're putting that thing on pay-per-view because they don't want to pay for it. They're hoping guys like me and you pay for it.
They don't want to fritter money away on that fight.
They're not going to finance any inflated guarantees to these PBC prima donnas. So the only way these PBC prima donnas can hope to get at the kind of money they want to get at is to participate in pay-per-views, hoping that guys like me and you will flip the bill, pick up the tab.
They're doing shit backwards over there.
Normally what you do is you build a fighter up till he reaches a certain level of popularity, and then you have that fighter fight on a pay-per-view at the height of their popularity, whereas these guys are putting guys that are coming off losses on pay-per-view. Inactive fighters that are coming right off of losses in their last outings. How do you make it make sense? How do you reconcile it? I'll tell you how you reconcile it. They're facing a scarcity of fight dates over there at the PBC as a result of the wavering commitment from Fox, because Fox is not going to overpay these fighters for these foregone conclusion fights. Consider that both Omar Figueroa,
Remember him?
and Andy Ruiz, who haven't seen any action in over a year, these guys have actually got a fight date where a fighter like Keith Thurman
Has yet to announce one.
Omar Figueroa has actually been away from the ring the same amount of time as Keith Thurman, because he fought on the undercard of Thurman versus Pacquiao, but even Omar's got something going on, and Keith doesn't. Why do you think that is? Well, it doesn't cost as much to pay Omar as it does to pay Keith. Keith is one of these PBC prima donnas that wants to get paid a certain way in spite of having not fought for close to 2 years and in spite of coming off a loss and not being in possession of a world title. He wants to get certain dollar amounts, and Fox isn't down to flip the bill. So he's going to continue to sit out.
Omar's cheaper anyway.
You know, when I first heard about this Ruiz versus Areola pay-per-view, I said to myself, I said, I think Figueroa is going to make an appearance on the undercard, but this wasn't the Figueroa that I was talking about. I was talking about Brandon Figueroa versus Luis Nery. And lo and behold, they've dug Omar, his older brother.
They dug him up after the ground swallowed him up.
That's what? 4 fighters that are coming right off of losses on a pay-per-view. And you're wondering why this is happening. You're wondering why Leo Santa Cruz all of a sudden decided to start calling out Oscar Valdez. What the hell is going on here? It's a scarcity of fight dates. That's what you're looking at. That's what's going on. The only way for some of these guys to get paid the way they want to get paid is to participate in pay-per-views, because Fox ain't going to flip the bill. They're hoping that me and you'll do that. Guy like Leo can't seem to get a fight date, get paid the way he wants to get paid. So he's looking elsewhere for opportunities, places that he should have already been looking before.
Didn't start till recently.
Well, why don't Fox put him on a pay-per-view?
Because they just did, and he just got knocked the fuck out. Wouldn't make much sense to send that guy back out there on their dime in any capacity.
They've got to exercise some kind of quality control.
That might explain why Leo is talking about locking horns with a top-ranked fighter as opposed to one of his stablemates, one of the permanent residents over there on PBC Island. He knows that for the time being, opportunities over there are scarce, and maybe they're not about to send him back out there. Could be that way.
It's amazing that Keith Thurman still doesn't have a fight date.
Marcus Brown still doesn't. When's the last time you saw John Pascal? Whatever momentum he garnered in beating Badu Jack and beating Marcus Brown, that has all but dissipated, and he's on borrowed time because he's no spring chicken. That guy's getting long in the tooth.
He hasn't fought since December of 2019.
If I'm being completely honest, I have no expectation to see Leo Santa Cruz lock horns with Oscar Valdez at any point in the near future. Even if the interest were mutual, even if Leo wanted it and Oscar wanted it, there's way too many politics involved, and ultimately, there's got to be some quality control here because Leo just got knocked the fuck out. So before you even start worrying about fighting with Oscar, you've got to have a rebound fight.
And you got to try to look good in it.
Because right now, nobody's all that excited to see Leo Santa Cruz versus Oscar Valdez, not based on what happened to Leo in the Gervonta Davis fight, and even before that, when he fought Miguel Flores for the then vacant WBA super featherweight title. Leo looked like a flat fighter that was out of place at 130 pounds. So if you're trying to galvanize the fight fans to get behind an Oscar Valdez fight, you've got to go out there and you've got to look the part. You've got to look good. Because nobody's going to be excited to see Leo fight anybody until they see him put on a performance that's worth remembering. And it's been a long time since Leo Santa Cruz did that. I should say, it's been a long time since Leo did that and secured the W.